For me, was always a little bit of struggle to see that people were connected this idea of future only with one specific lens of technology, and only of, for example, some people that were really passionate by technology, but not necessarily envisioning future scenarios as we are talking here today. And I remember that in 2015, I was focused on that already. And then I found this article saying, with this title, saying that tech bros who identify as futurists are sadly incorrect. And then it was really interesting to have this realization, because this is a word that have many different meanings. For example, futurism is connected with the 20th century Italian art movement, that we try to use the word in a different way, but we know that every time you are searching on Google, for example, about futurism, you're gonna find this references as well. We have some people that only really likes technology and say, yeah, I'm studying future, but then are just people like that is passionate by the subject, not necessarily are like professionals working inside of this field. And we have actually the people that are working as a futurist or futurologist. In the case, we have, for example, one of the sessions here with during the envisioning agenda for this event with Lydia, that is a futurologist that inside of the academic context, she's bringing many different ideas and trying to connect this with the market. And then we have people that goes from like different ranges of that connect with this idea. But then we have also articles or news around saying things like futurists rarely imagine a tomorrow without capitalism. Why we don't have more women futurists, or 7 top futurists make some pretty surprising predictions about what the next decade will bring. And then we are living in a completely different moment at the moment. Like the article was from 2015. And when we start to question this perspective that we were building around the future, we start to see that even to us, like, can you hear me? Yes?
Sorry, I disabled the screen share by accident.
Okay, let me see what happened. Just play back. It came back?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And then we see, and then we are trying to address in this community, you know, with all these projects we are doing together, that to study future, indeed, we know it is a context, it is a field surrounded by a lot of inequality. We are trying to understand the scenarios of the future, but it is really hard to be able to deal with all the issues we have, the social issues we have in different social groups around us at the moment. And this can be happening in a state in Brazil, or this can be happening in Asia, can be happening also here in Europe. And then we are trying to understand how we can study this field in a different way. And then once I found out this perspective, that when I had this realization, this opened my mind to see that actually this perspective of futurism that I was studying and then I was connected at that time had a huge cultural blind spot. Because we were trying to see ahead and to understand the next things, the next events, the next trends, the next movements. But then we were ignoring actually that it's not only a new gadget or a new gear that is going to change the social environment. We are having, for example, we were able to predict the invention of the smartphones, but we were not able to predict the entrance of the women in the market, for example. And then when we start to think about this cultural blind spot, we also see that the problem is focused in specific in this context. When we are trying to use new technologies or new ideas just to make the old big companies continue in the status quo, this is not futurism. This is just techno-capitalism. We are just doing the status quo maintenance. And I really believe that we have other ways to think about future. Like when I started to process this myopia around future, I started to feel like this really this huge futurism hangover. Like I was trying to understand how we could approach this in a different way, and how I could connect also with many different projects, communities, artists, collectives around the world that also had different approaches for future. What I'm going to share here today with you is connected of how we can disconnect with this, how we can desynchronize to this hangover, and to understand time in a different way. How we can use our best, that is our critical thinking, apply to all these futures that were limited by only technological or technicist bias, to change this myopia about time. And here I introduce for you this idea to think more in a more integral perspective, or more in this full spectrum, to think not only about future by that bias, but also to try to question our own myopia about time. Because when we think about time, we have this relationship to understand that the future is what is really important, and it is, but the future is not alone, is not by itself. We need to understand how the future is connected with many other ideas around. And the field I am studying and that I'm focusing on all our different projects inside of Taurus is called temporality. Temporality is this concept to study and to understand how people understand time, how we connect with time, how we use and manage our lifetime, and how we address meaning to this time we have in life. To study temporality, we start to understand that more than to think only about one lens of this time, that is the future we know until now. Here we're going to try to question even the lenses that made us think about the future until today. Then we're going to start sharing a little bit about, for example, how in Greece, Aristotle had this idea of time that was defined as time is the measure of change. So time is the way we perceive what is changing around us. So if we don't have something moving, changing around, we don't perceive the time passing. Actually, it's because you are learning, because you are living new experiences, because you are evolving, you perceive your lifetime passing. If your life would be could be always in the same scenario, probably you would be a little bit lost if you were living that life for 1 day, 1 month, or 200 years, because in some moment this sense of meaning start to be lost if you don't have something changing, something evolving, and something that you feel that you can also use this learning to contribute back to the world. That's why we started to focus our projects to study the temporal literacy, to start to bring to different organizations, to universities, to companies, how is important to develop these new languages, these new cultural codes, these new collective agreements that can help us to navigate through time and understand time in a different way. To give you just an example, I really like this image. I use it here to talk about temporal literacy. That is from the movie Arrival. Do you know this movie? Did you watch this movie Arrival? What I like about Arrival is a sci-fi movie inspired by the work of an author that had written about in a tale that was adapted. Yeah, and then in this movie we have Amy Adams living as this linguist that is invited by the military to try to translate alien language that it seems that is the key to understand present, past, and future in a completely different way. And during the movie, while the character of Amy Adams starts to connect with all these new ideas, and with all these new words, she starts to perceive the reality also in a different way. And I really believe that when I'm talking about temporal literacy, this is something we need to address. Because just like in Arrival, we have an inadequacy of grammar. We try to think about time, and for example, in the first session we had here today, envisioning and the future spaces, we're sharing about how it's important to have this ability to imagine, like to visually, to think about sounds, to think about the space around you, to try to materialize these concepts. And I really believe that this is really important. And for that, we need to be able to bring these concepts to life. But which concepts we are talking at the moment? We have, well, the concept of past, the concept of present, the concept of future. And basically, that's it. This is how we learned to think about time. We don't have more words than that. I feel almost in the first classes of school that you are trying to learn new concepts and you don't know yet how to approach that in different ways. But we know that time is something really like far more complex than that. But that's it. We live our whole lives only using these three words. I'm gonna bring you another example, and I'm seeing here that Phil shared about the techno-capitalist bias. Thank you for sharing here as well, Philip. Really nice to. I'm gonna read the article as well. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna bring now for you to you an example that is not from Amy Adams in their Arrival, but is from her real life version. That is a cognitive scientist called Lara Borodsky. Lara is the scientist that is studying how we connect with time by language and how time and language shapes our reality around. The first study I saw from her was from 2010, and she is really focused into bring this studies to many different cultures and countries. So she's studying how the Aboriginal people in Australia perceives time, how the pre-Columbian original cultures understands time, how the African nations before the slavers were connected with time. And then we can see in these different studies from Lara, things, for example, like this. I would like to invite you to say that when you think about time, how I would like to ask you to share here in our comments, Mani, or Mani, her name is here in the bottom, but Rodrigo is going to share a link about a TED Talk of Lara. It's Lara Borodsky. And I would like to invite you to answer in our chat if when you are thinking about time, you think that time is passing, is moving together with you in one direction. So I am moving to this direction and time is moving together into that direction, or time is moving against you, across you. And why I'm asking that? Because like I'm going to explain, but then I would like to use this A and B examples. If you think that the past is in front of you, that you think that the past is in front of you, you can say A. I know it's different than the image. Or if you think that the future is in front of you, you can say B. Where is the future to you? And I'm seeing also that we are in the video, I can see you, but if you can write in the chat. So, for example, I am here. In front of me is my past or my future. Like, if you think like, here's past, A, or here is future, A, or B. I'm asking that because it is such a simple question, like, where is time for you? Or how do you connect with time in your life? I'm seeing people saying, some people saying A, some people saying B. I would like to tell you that just like this example, I'm gonna continue to talk about that. And Ted said that you see for him, the time is in a completely different scale, really good. Yes, Mike, the image is different than what I'm saying now. Yeah, I know. Was the first thing I mentioned. This example can also be translated with using right and left, for example. During the session, I'm going to be talking about time, and every now and then I'm going to say, yeah, because of something from the past, and then I'm going to use this metaphor to talk about past in my left, or about future and to talk about future in my right. And why we do that? Because in the Western civilizations we write from left to right, and because of that we understand that time is passing in the same direction, right? But if we start to see, for example, how the Oriental cultures that writes from right to left, for them time can pass in a different way. So when we start to connect with these cultural elements, we start to understand that your perception of time is completely different than the other people here around. For example, we have a lot of people saying A, a lot of people saying B. The future is past in the present. Cristiano mentioned. And I'm going to bring another Oriental example that this one I really like, is that I always mentioned with my friends and here at home that I'm gonna do something in the future, for example, tomorrow, and I'm gonna do point to something in front of me. I'm gonna say this is gonna happen tomorrow. When I was studying that subject last week, and then I'm gonna point my fingers to my back. Actually, in the Oriental cultures, for example, in Japan, we have the opposite directions to the same thing, not only like left, right, as I mentioned, but they say that, this happened yesterday, and they are gonna point to their front, as I am doing at the moment. And they're gonna say that, next year, I hope that the year is gonna be better than this year. And they're gonna say next year, pointing to their back. And then we're gonna say like, oh, how this is different. And I have some friends that use this in a different way. Some people are gonna say, I am pointing to right and left, or left and right, in completely different ways. And then this is really cultural. People can use this in different ways, in different cities and in different people that were raised in different ways. And what I think is really nice, I like this perspective of past and future that I mentioned, because if you think we are walking towards the future and we cannot see what to where this future is going to lead. So it's almost as we are walking in a direction without being able to see this future, and we are looking only to what's just happened to our present. But then this sounds so limited, just like Carol just said here, that we can start to point in spirals. So to try to understand this movement of spirals of time, for example, or circles, and then we start to pay attention in how different cultures around the world connect with time. We start to question these ideas of right, left, front, back. Like, did you see now that it is something that all of us have completely different ideas of where time would be located at the moment. Another example from Lara is that she was working with Aboriginal community in Australia, and then for them, time didn't have any of these directions we mentioned now. Time had a fixed, geographically fixed point. So it's like this. How time passes? Time passes like this. But then if I am talking with you from this direction, I would say, time passes like this, and pointing always to the same direction. And then we can think how come they have that, a specific movement in a specific direction or spin to point time. And then going further in this study, she understood that they were connecting time with the flow of the river. And because of that, since they knew that the river it is in a specific point and in their community, and the river is always flowing from one direction to the other, also time. And then they have this idea of time connected with what they know around. It's just like colors. If you don't know culturally, if we don't know a color, we cannot identify, for example, in a range of different colors, because we never were presented to that. We heard about the same concept, for example, with snow. We say that, like, I am from Brazil, and from the north of Brazil, I don't have winter in my city. And you can imagine to try to think about different words to define snow, different kinds of snow. And we heard already that the Eskimo people, they have different words to identify different types of snow. We don't have that, and because of we don't have the words and any reference in our reality, is really hard to us. Marco also shared here that Tenet explores a bit of that in an insane way, and exactly, just like I really like how Nolan is evolving this temporal literacy job he's doing with his movies. So he started with more simple concepts in a really interesting way, and today with Tenet, like, you need to keep up to try to understand all the new concepts and ideas. And I really believe that we are going towards this kind of words, this kind of words that we need to have all these different concepts to explain time. I'm also gonna read here Shana comment about many indigenous people that present, past, and future are happening all at once, and they actually don't have a differentiation between time periods, so they can easily travel through different times as they please. Exactly. And then we're gonna talk about more of these perspectives now. So let's also try to create together our long-term view of time. Just to have another reference about past, present, and future, as we mentioned, we can start questioning the past, present, and future perspective, understanding that everyone has a completely different time orientation. So probably you understand time in a different way than me, and that's okay. And all of us have different time orientations. What that means, we are studying for, I think, for 5 years now, the work of Felipe Zimbardo. He's an American psychologist that started to map. He started to map the ways people connect with time, how people addresses the reality and adheres with it in different ways. And then he got in 6 different approaches or time orientations, as he calls in his book called Time Paradox. And these are the 6 perspectives. So here you can see already that we have new words to talk about time. So we have past, present, and future. And he said that we have polarities of past, present, and future. What it means, polarities? It's not necessarily something bad or good, but he said that we have these 2 different concepts that are like the 2 sides of the same coin. So for example, about past, I can think about, like, we can be here now, and then I can think, oh, maybe instead of be able to be present, my mind is gonna be thinking of what happened in the beginning of the week, and then I'm gonna be caught in the middle of some thoughts about it. And then some people, instead of be present in the moment they are living, their mind is always in that kind of thoughts or feelings from the past. Probably you have that friend that you are talking about something in the present, and then this person is saying like, yeah, and this reminded me that time that this happened, and it was not a nice, it was not a nice moment. So some people go straight to the past with this orientation of guilt, to try to see what went wrong in that moment in the past, and they have these ideas in their minds as the highlights of their minds. But we also have people that can be nostalgic, but look into the past with this gratitude perspective, to be grateful to what happened with you. Because if we think together that without some experiences, probably you would be a different person. So you would not be here doing the same kind of reflections without that kind of experiences. So the second polarity of past is the past connected with gratitude. And here it's really important to share with you that we are not talking about to try to celebrate something bad that happened with you. This is not about that. We are living in a really challenging year. And it's not about to say, yeah, let's try to take some learnings about that. It's not about that. It's to understand that in the middle of these challenges, you had your experience and you took your actions, and you deserve to deserve this gratitude by the way you approach that hard situation. So it's important to understand and to connect like with the gratitude about the past in these different ways. Just like I mentioned about guilt and gratitude, when we talk about present, we have some people that look the present in this fatalistic approach, like, oh God, oh, what is happening again? Like I don't have any control about what is happening with me. And the name is fatalistic, but it's also connected with fate. Fate, like a destiny that you cannot control, and then it's gonna hit you, and then you don't have agency of your life. You are living in the present, but like what happens is gonna happen, and that's it. Like in a bad way. The other polarity of this present is the hedonistic perspective. It's a perspective that don't try to control. In fact, understand that we don't have control about what is happening around us. But since we don't have control, we can at least enjoy it. We can at least celebrate it. We can celebrate our steps, the way we approach things happening with us. And then I really connect with like people that can find, even in a situation that basically nothing is happening, a way to enjoy that moment, or to see their connection with time at that moment. But there is also something that we need to pay attention when we are in the hedonistic perspective, and it is the fact that sometimes you start to plan something. For example, after this session, I'm gonna take my notes and I'm gonna start a journal to write about my relationship with time. And then you created this plan, you have already the task set up to start, but then a friend call you on WhatsApp, and then you say, yeah, of course I can talk with you now. And then start to talk with this friend, and then something else is gonna happen, and then you start to go like with the flow in a nice way. You are enjoying, but then you start to struggle with the lack of structure, with the lack of like this plans happening in your life, because you have a vision sometimes, but you are like moving and changing really easily. And because of that, when you look to the future perspectives, and here I'm pointing again to the right, you start to see these two polarities of the transcendental future, or the future that we approach with concretude. And what it means, the transcendental is the approach that, yes, you are oriented towards the future. You have your visions, your ideas. We are focused in how we would like to have things. But then all this future looks so far. For example, I know that I really want to be more connected with some causes and social movements, but I'm going to do this after I get retired and have more free time. Or I know that it's really important to the planet that I should start to think about a different diet, but then we are so close to the Christmas celebrations, and then my family really likes to do a barbecue, for example, and then you start to say, you know that you want to live in a future, but this future is beyond this transcendence. It's like in the other side of this bridge, but you don't have the bridge, you have only the gap. You don't have any step to achieve that. And then a lot of people live also in this transcendental future. This future can also be connected with some ideas, for example, of I'm gonna be able to enjoy this scenario in my next life, or in my reincarnation, or in a company, for example. How we can use this in a scenario of a company. You can imagine that a director saying, yeah, I understand that we need to change these policies in the company, but not during these years I am the CEO. So this is gonna happen with the next board of this company, for example. And we have many companies, or even societies like governments, doing that. Like the next president is gonna do something about it. Like now we need to focus in the problems we are facing in the present. And then we are always creating this gap, this transcendental future. But then we know that in '92, for example, many different countries went together to organize an event to talk about the future of our planet. And then in 2015, these governments and countries were together and then signed in France another agreement to say things that we need to change globally until 2030. And then we are in 2020, and many or all of these countries that signed that in 2015 didn't change at all. Actually, only 2 countries from Africa were able to apply what they promised, because everyone is focusing in the present and trying to reach this future in the future. So we have until 2030. So it feels that, okay, but we should not start in 2030. Yeah, we should start to think about how we can address this today to build the steps until there. And to build the steps is when I start to talk about the concrete scenario. The concrete future is when we start to understand that, well, it's easy. If I want to live in a castle in my future, this future is as far as the number of bricks I need to put around me in the present. So if I'm able to put these different bricks in the present in a specific pace, I'm gonna be closer to this future. And then I need to start to break this task in some small tasks to be able to perform in the present to build this concrete future. Let me bring something else to you about this, because now probably you are thinking, okay, I understand. I understood that I need to be focused in the future with this concrete perspective, right? So this is not the main learning from Zimbardo here in this study. He said that because we are really focused only in the future, we are having a hard time to change our habits. And why this is happening? Because the main characteristic or the main time orientation here is not the concrete future, it's the past with gratitude. Because imagine, if I don't have any gratitude, if I'm not grateful to what I did already, if I'm not celebrating in the present my achievements, I'm gonna be connected with new projects, new clients, new tasks, and I'm gonna be doing more and more and more and more with no reason, like trying to fill this gap that never is gonna be filled, because I am not celebrating in the present and I am not creating this gratitude. When you start to feel grateful to what you lived already, you start to change. For example, if someone invites me to a project that some years ago I would say, yes, I'm gonna do this project, but in fact I lived that already. I was able to, in the present, learn about it, and I'm grateful about the learnings I had. Maybe today I'm gonna say, I learned already. I think like this project is not to me. I'm gonna recommend someone that you can do this project, but now I'm really focused into this other approach of my life, of my work. And then because of the gratitude towards your past, you were able to change some perspective of your reality. As important of these time orientations, we have the when to perspective. And what is that? This is a concept that actually it comes from Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink, yes, and Daniel Pink says that as important as the how to, So how you're gonna do some specific or achieve something specific in your life is the when to. So we need to try to think also about the timing of the things. And Daniel Pink wrote this book called The Science of the Perfect Timing, saying that actually there are specific moments to these tasks in your life. You need to also address that. You need to think about not only how to do, but when to do. And he brings examples for our routine, that if you are thinking about to ask for a raising in your salary to your boss, and today is Thursday or Friday and it's afternoon, and probably it's not the best moment because you are gonna everyone's gonna be thinking only about weekend already, and then this conversation is gonna be postponed, and then you lost an opportunity. But then if you try to understand how I can use the moments in the beginning of the week or in the beginning of the day that people are with a raising level of energy, and then he tried in this book, like the When book, to bring the science behind these moments that we are more that we intend more to do, to be open to some specific tasks. I'm looking here to our chat. People talking about the gratitude journal. Yes, really nice idea. Yes, to connect. Alex mentioned here, and Rodrigo shared the link of the book. I really recommend. Really good examples for our routine, basically for every different context around our routine.
Gus,
okay. Wait.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you gonna show the torus later or now?
Yeah.
Okay.
About the different perspectives, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. For any specific reason, you can say that I can do it. Tell me.
No, because I think it connects to what you were talking about before, about how you perceive the past also can influence on.
Yes.
But also you decide.
I'm gonna share. Nice, Carol. Carol shared also here the 5 years journal. Yeah, it's really nice because it brings like this perspective of more time. You start to see like that some things are happening in your life, like in different moments, in cycles happening. I'm gonna share the Taurus soon. I'm gonna just say that to use this when to is important to take strategic decisions, but also emotional decisions, to understand better the context around you, the social, political context. And then we understand that this, just like we have to have all these different intelligences, the temporal intelligence is as important as all of these ones. So I'm seeing many of different questions here and comments, most of them comments, really nice ones. By the way, we have a lot of really nice references to put together with our cloud. So I would like to bring another reference, if it's okay for you, if the place is okay. I'm gonna bring for you this difference from Zeitgeist to Zeitgeber. That is something that we are connected also today. So let's do it. First about Zeitgeist, if you don't know this concept, it comes from a German word attributed by George Hegel. He's a philosopher that talks about the spirit of time. Zeitgeist is like poltergeist, but is another kind of spirit. Is the spirit of time, is this field that manifests, that is manifested from the interactions between ideas and beliefs from a particular period of history. So the ideas and beliefs that we are immersed right now in our culture, they merge together and they make this zeitgeist that we are living in. When we talk about zeitgeist, many of the people, and most like the many different industries use the word zeitgeist to talk about trends or to talk about future, to talk about be synchronized with what is happening, what is new, what is fresh. I am connected with the zeitgeist, but actually the zeitgeist is also about empathy. we need to understand that we have many different people in many different time orientations. And this is building this collective perspective of time. And why is important to understand empathy in the Zeitgeist? Because you need to reach these people that are in a different perspective of time than you, to bring them to a new one, for example. And then I'm gonna bring here to you this how I split the Zeitgeist concept. Like we have this perspective of the residual time, that is basically all the echoes of codes, languages, cultural behaviors that are already misaligned, desynchronized from our time. And this is really easy to identify. For example, if a session in an event like this one, someone start to talk about something that you consider racist or misogynist or homophobic or transphobic, soon really it's going to be really easy to say to start to pay attention, like, okay, this person is in a completely different time, this person is bringing ideas that are not dialoguing with what we are bringing at the moment right now. So how we can understand this time? We have also a second perspective here called dominant time, that is basically the status quo. It's the cultural codes that define the reality around us. It's basically everything that we not even question, we just agree because things are as they are. Like I never saw in a different way, so why I'm gonna question that? And we have, yes, the trends and the emerging time that are these evidences of new narratives shaping new cultural codes. And it's really easy to start that is misaligned. You can identify a lot of new narratives. The main thing here, then the main learning is we need to learn how to question the dominant time. We need to learn how to question the status quo. We need to have the courage to do the questions and to face the issues that most of the people around never questioned. And because if you pay attention in everything that today is residual time, part of this residual time, it was something dominant, really close to, like really recent to our time. So some years ago, we have many of these things that I mentioned that people were considering basically the status quo, the dominant time. So I invite you to also, if you're going to start your journal in one of these references that we brought here, try to think what you never questioned, what is dominant around. And if you agree with that, if this is okay, if there is something around that you would prefer to live in a different context, to have this list of things that for everyone around never was questioned, but to have your own questions about it is to change also your relationship with time. We are living, I used to say that inside of this Zeitgeist, we are facing a lot of questions and struggles. Like we are not living on the new normal. Like we don't know what is going to happen with the world. We cannot say that this we don't have any structure to say that what is happening now is going to be like that, or to start to talk about a post-COVID scenario, since we are still in the middle of the COVID scenario. And what we can say is that this is not the new normal. This is just another now. It's another moment, another change that we are living, and we need to face this now, or this other now that we are living in the present. Is dominated by a time crisis. We feel that everything is accelerating around, and we don't know how to address that. We feel also that we are desynchronized of ourselves as individuals, and we see and feel that we are, as Bauman said, living in this interregnum era, this place that is not part of the old system, but the new one also didn't arise. So we are living in this time of between times, and because of that, we feel that that is really hard to keep up, not only with what is changing, but with what we want as a change. So we know that we don't agree with many of the things that were status quo until now, but it's really hard to say, so what is the solution? We are living also this regulated ecology that the humanity itself, because the planet was able to self-regulate without us. And we also perceive that we are living this intergenerational changes. So everything that we are deciding today, the changes we are doing today, they are going to affect not only our generation, but all the generations to come. So it is a huge and a really high stake here. And to talk about this time crisis that I mentioned, we know that we are living this technological acceleration, but we never are looking only to the tech itself inside of this context. We know that inside of the context, that this technological acceleration is bringing to the world another dimension that is called the social acceleration, or the acceleration of social change. And when we are living this collective change of reality, this also gonna start to accelerate your pace of life. And we are living in this cycle, accelerating more and more. But then this also actually comes from a book called The Social Acceleration from Hartmut Rosa. And basically, like what I'm bringing here in the Zeitgeist part is that we are living always in this pressure by time, but there are different ways to connect with time. For example, and I'm gonna have a sip of water here. I really like this perspective that opened my eyes that Hartmut Rosa brings in his book, that we can have growth not necessarily connected with the pace of acceleration we are living today. We can have the growth bigger than the acceleration pace, and with that, actually, we are going to have a decreasing of the pace of life, even with the world growing. But then what we are living today is that the acceleration is bigger than the actual outcomes or results that we are having, the growth around. And because of that, we are increasing the pace of life. And with that, we feel that we are living this time scarcity, that we are feeling that we don't have free time, and then we are always increasing this rate of our relationship with time. We feel that we don't have free time anymore. But we have different examples of places trying to change that. This one is an island in Norway called Sommerøy. They decided to abolish time and they became a time-free zone. And what it means that they decided to, instead of, since they are really in the north, they decided to, instead of be only in the time zone and clocks that people were used to, they decided, oh, so if we want to be doing some activities like during really late night or really early during morning, and being sleeping in another moment, since we have sun in many hours of the day during summer, or if we have night in many hours of the day during winter, they decided to create their own relationship with time. And they invite people when they go to visit the city to abandon their clocks in front of the city. This is the bridge of the city. I really like this example because all of us feel in different ways that we are, in some sense, out of sync with what is happening in the society. And I'm not commenting that about to feel disconnected with the pace of things. No, we feel out of sync. Like I don't know if I agree with many of the ideas that are happening around, or the decisions that are the decisions makers are taking. And Giorgio Agamben, the philosopher, the Italian philosopher, he said that precisely to be contemporary is to don't adhere in the time we live. Because if you are connected, strongly connected with the ideas of our time, these ideas, they are already echoes from what came before of us. So if we are contemporary, we need to be feeling out of sync, because it's in this way that we start to search for what is going to come next to us. Because of that, I'm introducing here, together with the Zeitgeist concept, the Zeitgeber word for you. Zeitgeber is another word in the German language that can be translated as a time giver. What is a time giver? A time giver is basically what forces drives a world. For example, today I understand that our Zeitgeber, what is driving our world is the system we are inserted around. So we can say the system, the clocks, but in the early societies, we have, for example, people connected with time by the sun or by the moon or by the tides or by different cycles, for example, the seasons, different patterns of the nature, different frequencies. And then we can change this collective zeitgeist, changing our Zeitgeber. We can try to find which different Zeitgebers we would like to feel connected. Still to question our actual Zeitgeber, I really like this sentence from Manfred Lewis. He's a sociologist that said that was the clock and not the steam machines, the gear that defined the modern industrial era. And for me, this is really interesting because he's saying that actually with the industrial era, we started to disconnect from the natural time and we started to live in a mechanical time because we are living basically the time of the industry around. I'm going to bring another example. I'm not going to go too deep in this one because I could spend a lot of hours talking all about this one. The Gregorian calendar, that is the calendar we follow. We all follow that. We all said that this session is going to happen December 10th. And we basically, we grew up inside of this system, inside of the Zeitgeber, but we never questioned who created this calendar. The calendar was always like this. All the different cultures follow the same calendar. In the calendar we follow, the name of the calendar is the Gregorian calendar because it was institutionalized by Gregorius, the Pope. So it is a calendar that was that we started to use because of the church. And many political decisions were taken inside of this calendar for example, to do homages from the Caesar. So Julius became July, Augustus, and all the structure of the months needed to be arranged, adapted because of these homages. And then they took some days from February to be able to have July and August having the same amount of days, for example. And when we start to think, for example, September is a month that the name has seven, but it's not the 7th month, it's the 9th, because they put 2 months to create this ways to honor this Caesars. We have different information, for example, like that. But then the main question here is, do you feel connected with the or with the church, or with the church decisions, the Catholic Church decisions around time? This is the time you are following. And basically, we never questioned. It's not even that, yes or no. It is a question that we never addressed. And this is the time to address and to think about our Zeitgebers. Many of the early societies, our ancestors, they were living like big nations, not only like small tribes or villages. They were living based in 13 moon cycles. So if you take the same amount of days, months, weeks that we have in our calendar, we can organize and to see time as this perfect harmonic cycles of 13 moon cycles. We have then 13 cycles of 28 days. That is the average moon cycle. And we have 13 moon cycles during a year. So why you have 12 months? Why you have the 12 months with a lot of political changes and decisions instead of using the time of the nature around? This is a question we all need to do. Like many of these cultures, for example, the Mayan culture in the Central America, the Egyptians in the African continent, they had this structure or different calendars, not only this one, but with this calendar, we have 13 multiplied per 28. Then we have 1 extra day in the year. that is called the day out of time. And many of these cultures, they celebrated in this day, this moment to, like that I mentioned, like the hedonistic day to create great gratitude about your past, is a day that instead of have some hours of the New Year's Eve, no, you have a whole day to connect with what you learned from the last year and how you want to be fully present in the year that is going to start. This, many of these cultures, they connected this day with some other cycles beyond our solar system. So they understood that these cycles, the day of the day out of time is the July 25th, because it's connected also with the movement of other stars, like Sirius, for example. And not only these different cultures started to they celebrate time, but we started to celebrate the day out of time at Taurus as well. So we have our events around the day out of time as well. So you are already invited for the next one in July 25th. And it is a nice opportunity to question and to connect with our relationship with time. Just to be able to go from clocks to beyond, as I promised, like to share with you how we can have different Zeitgebers. I'm gonna start to bring here some ideas to how I started to connect all of these different dots. So now we're gonna start to have a more wrap up of all these ideas. I perceive that all these different questions, they understand time in different scales. These cultures, these communities, these different specialists, they understand that time exists from eons in the cosmological scale to eras in the geological perspective of our planet, to epochs, to different moments of the society, to years of our life, to hours, and so on and so on and so on. I know we have many other ones in the middle of that, but then we can look to all of that in basically these scales. We have the cosmological scale that is really beyond to far beyond from all of us, and we have the quantum scale, the microscopical perspective, but then we are having a human experience at the moment. So we want to know more about how we can connect with the time of this perspective. And in the Greek culture, they had these two words to define time, to define our relationship with time. The chronos, that is this time that is controlled and ruled by the clock, and then we know that we can we try to control our experience. But we also have that flow, that moment that we feel that we are living our best, we are doing what we need to do, and it's not connected with a clock. Maybe you are really into it and then you don't know time passing by the clock, or maybe you are able to learn a lot about a new subject, and then when you see in a clock, it was, oh my God, it was only like 1 hour that passed during all that moment. And this concept has a name. It's called kairos. Kairos is the subjective experience with time. It's that moment that we feel emotionally connected. It's a time that is not controlled by our brains, but is accessed by our hearts, is how they define. And this is a really beautiful perspective when we try to decolonize our imaginaries, our minds, about how we connect with time. It is connected with flow, but flow is like connected with present. Kairos is the big perspective of time. It's almost like a different vibration, a different frequency of time that you could feel connected. But this in the Greek perspective, right? The Greek culture. Answering Marcella here that asked in our chat. I'm going to bring a different example than the Greek culture then. For example, the same idea of flow is present in the Hindu mythology. Time, according to the Hindu mythology, is represented by Shiva dancing over a flowing river. And what a strong image to think about. I have a friend that I talk a lot about that in India, and it is so beautiful to see how many many different words and concepts they have to express our relationship about time, cycles, patterns that basically the Western societies they don't have. And what a strong message to think about time as this entity, this God dancing over a flowing river in the cosmos. And I really like this idea to just be flowing in time that this Hindu mythology brings. But then the main learning about this concept is that there is not just one Shiva. There is not just one river. You are your own God at the moment, flowing in your own river. There are 1,000 dancing Shivas around. And then that's important to be kind to how people are connected with different relationships with time. And then this is a really beautiful, like this sentence, actually, the 1,000 dancing Shivas comes from Carlo Rovelli. He is an Italian physicist that brings these concepts about quantum physics in a book called The Order of Time. That actually was in a conversation with Michelle from Envision that I met the ideas. And then it is one really important reference to all of us. And with that, I brought here to our conversation this more metaphysical perspective of time. When we start to understand how we can connect with this metaphysics of time, to understand that some people understand time as only the present exists. So we don't have anything beyond present towards future or past. And because of that, this presentism is a philosophical perspective that is symmetrical, because you only have that specific time. The other polarity of that is called eternalism, that says that no, actually we have the past exists, the future exists, but then we lost all the possibility to make our own choices inside of that, because if the past and future are already written, how we can deal with free will, for example. We have this path in the middle that doesn't have a symmetry called growing past, that we are writing the history as we walk in the present towards the future, but we don't have the symmetry anymore. So still has something missing here. So I saw Emma in Deep's mention about Shiva. Emma asked about different words. I'm gonna bring one here that I really like. This one comes from the African perspective I mentioned. I started to study with Morena Mayashi from a project called Afrofuture in Brazil, and she studies the African perspectives of time. And we studied together. We had many courses together already, and together with her, I learned about these two concepts that, just like you were mentioning here in the comments, is really hard when we try to translate to English, because when we translate, we try to create a cognate. So we try to have like the similar meaning, and not necessarily we're gonna have the similar meaning. So for example, here we have Sasa. Sasa is this microcosmic time, is this period of immediate concern. So is when, for example, when we are here going from one moment to the other in something that feels like a line, we are living like this immediate concern. So this is called Sasa in the African perspective. And we know that we have the past, the future, the immediate past, the immediate future, the present, and then we are walking in one direction. But what many of these African cultures say, like they have different words as well, like I brought only these two by one of the perspectives. The Zamani is the other perspective called the macrocosmic time, or the deeper time, is a way to jump to different times. Just like Shanna mentioned about the Amerindian original people, that they understand time as a whole. So you can, from the present, access this big perspective of time and go into your ancestrals to learn about the past, to learn about what happened already, and with this knowledge from this library, apply that in the present. For me, it's a really beautiful perspective because it is a completely different way to explore the reality. Like I'm gonna show you the perspectives of time in more different ways. We have like the Swahili, as this is from Emma. This is from the work of John Mbiti. He's a professor that wrote a book about the African philosophies and cosmogonies. Cosmogony is a word to explain how the universe was created. Nice. And he wrote about that. But then just to share a curiosity about that, in English, or a anthropologist coming from the Western societies, we can say, okay, nothing different. Zamani is past. Zaza is present. So which means that they don't have a future. But this is such a simplistic perspective, because with that, trying to match words, we are losing the opportunity to understand that for them, Zamani and Zaza, they are not past and present. They are basically time. They are the time around us at the moment, and the time as a whole that we can access and go through these different perspectives, as access this time as a fractal. I know it's hard to understand time in this different way, but just like Shanna mentioned before, like to the Amerindian original people, for example, when I started to connect with, I am from the north of Brazil, so from the Amazon rainforest region. And when I started to connect with how the indigenous tribes around connect with time, they understand time as something fractal. Something fractal, it means that in different scales, you are gonna perceive time in the same way. So in the present, you can have this glimpse, this teaser of the whole thing. So in this day, you can have a glimpse of the month, or you can have a glimpse of the year and of the years ahead to come, for example. They have this feeling, for example, to express how different people from the same lineage, like the grandfather, the father, the son, the grandson, the great son, how they are also fractals from each other. And when one of them are able to change something in their learnings, in their lives, they are changing all the ancestry line, also liberating from that thing. And it is a really beautiful perspective. Just like Rodrigo mentioned, what we are trying to do here is to change something that today for us had less dimensions. So it was like something like time was basically a shape like this image we're seeing here, like a two-dimensional thing. And we are trying to change that to a more multi-dimensional shape. This is actually a torus. I'm gonna come out of the video here and see all of you out of the presentation as well.
Yes.
Oi.
I got a message here that we should finish in about 10 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah. I'm just entered here again to say that this is the same thing I showed to you in the image, like to understand that we think about time as a line. So it's almost like you can see just this part of time as past, present, and future. What all these different societies are telling us, that time maybe is like this sequence of different circular perspectives that you can connect in different ways. But then, just like this is just a two-dimensional approach or metaphor, we start to understand that time is more something like this, with many different pasts that can connect with many different futures. And then all these different pasts and futures we can access through this present, that is this place in the middle where all of them are touching each other. So we are flowing in time. We are trying to find and to connect these different past and futures by the present. And I'm gonna share my screen again here. We are going now to the last part to say that this is also about perspective, because when we start to understand that everything that we know about time is only the perspective of one single species called the Homo sapiens, with many different cultures, but this is the reality of the universe translated by the lenses of only one species. So this reality check is also important here. Like some authors like James Lovelock also say that maybe we are going to have multidimensional beings or AIs or quantum computers that are going to understand time in a completely different way in the future. But even today, our species can understand time in different ways. I brought to you many different ways. I know we could talk about many others here. I'm gonna like to summarize our session, say that our brains are time machines. So when you start to bring these new concepts, you can also navigate through these different perspectives. And this sentence is from a book called Your Brain is a Time Machine from Dean Bonomano. He's a neuroscientist. So it's not me that only me saying. And then to conclude, I would like to bring to you the summarize of these perspectives. I am studying how we can extend or expand this understanding of time because I really believe that we should study time in its full spectrum, not only talking about future or not only talking about past, present, and future, but understanding the vast experience and knowledge that humanity have in different cultures. So how we can awaken our temporality. Like this is a work that Torres is developing like for some years now to try to bring in a more artistic way, in a more experimental perspective, how we can expand this concept of now and understand that from the present moment, we have these thin layers of time, just like I show you in the torus. And then if we expand this perspective, we are gonna pay attention that all these fractal different temporalities, they are already there. We just need to find them. They are there and they are basically experiencing itself and learning how to like pulsate, to breathe as something that, yes, we call time. For many of these different cultures, time was a breath, was a way of the universe to experience itself, ascending and descending, just like we breathe. And when we think about that, we start to say that we start to see that time is this flowing thing, this spiral, this toroidal, this cyclical movement happening. And we can say that inside of this torus, we have a creature, this universe, this universal essence existing that some philosophies called uno, or the one. But then inside of this time, we have the temporality itself. And the temporality is about creation and destruction, birth and death. The temporality is to understand that we are in the present moment, in the now, where we can flow and discover these different movements, but they are mirrored. And from here, we can access the reality that is a duality, as I'm showing here. So we have this present continuous that where we can change things. And then in all the different sides, we have just mirrors. In one side, you're gonna have the memory. There is all the pasts you remember, but we also have the virtuality. That is all the futures you're gonna imagine. Just like we have the ancestrality, there are the roots, the heritage you have, and the other side, the axial, the ramifications, the legacy we are gonna share with our ancestors, with our descendants in the future. And we have also things that doesn't serve anymore, are the residues, the submerged echoes from the past, and the potential, everything that is gonna manifest from the emerging futures. When we look to all these perspectives, we start to see that this sphere, this cycle has different meanings, and then we can change our reality. I brought here in this image to you today, but you saw that too, yes, you saw that before. This is not the first time we're seeing that. Many of different cultures, they show this spiral movement of polarities experiencing itself. And this is time. This is basically what time is. And we see that in many different cultures, as I mentioned. And from now on, I would like to invite you to see time as this shape, as a spiral, experience itself, and try to understand how your relationship with time can go from a microscopical scale to a macroscopical scale. We have many authors talking about that I'm going to share with you with the presentation. Like coming back to the present, to our Earth, to all the things we learned today together, I would like to invite you to have a new reality with all these new concepts, and to welcome you as a time traveler, because now you are part of the group that understand time in a different way. Now you understand that to go back in time is not a simple answer to the current crisis, but we need to develop a more integral perspective of time. I told you that we have at Taurus many other approaches to talk with organizations, to companies, to governments, but then today I try to bring this approach like more easy to talk with our group, with people from different places. But I also would like to tell you that on Monday we are going to have an event talking not about the concepts we brought today, but we are going to be talking about what we can learn using the fractal perspective about the 9 months we lived until now in this pandemic, and how we can learn what we are gonna face in the next 9 years ahead. So we are gonna bring some new concepts there. And also, if you would like to be connected with all these different contexts, we have also a beta project that is called the Guild. It's our Guild for Time Travelers. It's a space to share basically this knowledge. We are doing this for like two years now in a more closed group, and we decided to open that for people around the world that want to share with different specialists talking about that. So all the ideas I shared here with you, for example, about designers, cognitive scientists, psychologists, sociologists, authors, artists, physicists, indigenous philosophers. So all these ideas that we are talking, and many of the projects I am connected personally, we are gonna start to open more these ideas in this space called our Guild, and to share all these different perspectives of time. So if you would like to be in contact and have continuous studies about time, like we have already, we published an article that have a brief version of everything that I was telling you today. So with videos and more different references about the authors, some authors I was mentioning. I know it was a lot. And just to end, like you are invited to be part, like to study together, and let's search for these higher levels of temporal consciousness. So if you want to be a time traveler, I see you in our Guild. And here again, like our contact, the screenshot, and to be able to reach and to continue together. So thank you very much. It was intense time traveling.
So thank you guys. So the next session we have is the future of cities. I'm going to share the link with you if you want to participate. Thank you very much, Gust. I'm very happy to have you here. It was more of a masterclass format because we got excited about this subject. And tomorrow we have the same session but in Portuguese if you want to join to speak Portuguese, and some other sessions from English. Thank you guys. See you in another session.
Guys.